Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about shit hitting the fan through the concept of QE and consumerism. A lot of you really want more economic videos. Some of you are like, hey, we get enough of that shit. My thing is, I got to talk about what I talk about. Ideas that come up to me through discussions with you guys. Shit hitting the fan is a personal thing we're all going to experience, but we're going to experience it as a group. All of us together having our own little lives that we're going to deal with all of this crap that's being just heaped on our heads. Anyways, that's, the concept of shit hitting the fan. We are going economically to hell in a handbasket. And since money makes the world go round, in other words, good economy, good times, without good times, it's the other way. And we're seeing a progression there. When things go bad with money, things go bad with a lot of other factors. So I recommend taking a good look at this chart. I think I did a pretty good job lining it up. Let's just talk a little bit about what the government, what the bankers are doing. Because they are, in my opinion, they tell us one thing and they do another. They say this is how the system works, but that's not what we see happening. They say you should be happy to have a job. And they say a lot of things. So let's take a look at how the system is going and what they're saying they're doing to fix it, and then how we can see, well, you can decide for yourself what you see. So, quantitative easing, QE, that is basically money printing. The government authorizing the Federal Reserve to send money to the banks to make loans, right? So quantitative easing. But our system that we have in the United States, it is a consumer-based economy. That is the vast bulk of our economy. From retail spending to autos and homes, right? That's what we do. We buy stuff. I mean, we do a little bit of manufacturing. There's a good industrial base here, but it's not what it used to be, and it's not what I think we need to have in order to be a long-term sustainable country. Leaving growth aside, just what does it take to create, fund, and sustain? So, consumerism is what we have, though. You go spend money. Money goes to the business. The business says, thank you very much. Hires people, produces more product, pays some taxes, people pay taxes, money goes back to the consumer at the beginning, right? The employee becomes the consumer. The consumer buys stuff, and so the employees get more work, and it's a nice loop, right? It's a nice circle. But if it fails, shit hits the fan. SHTF. Obviously, it's a word that's in my vocabulary a couple dozen times a day, maybe. Anyways, so I've got a bunch of lines here, and I've got some color coding. So if you have a black and white computer or a green computer, I apologize. But most of us have color now, and the colors really help. Zoom in if you have to, put your face right up to the screen, whatever it takes to see how this works. So I've got consumer spending in brown. So let's assume that on our chart here, which is volume and time, and it's just volume to show up and down, and of course time to show linear movement through time. Consumer spending, the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, basically Wall Street. If I talk about the Dow, some people like, the Russell or the S&P, but just Wall Street in general. The value of stock, the stock market. Then we get into QE, quantitative easing, which is cash loans to banks and corporations. That's where QE goes. Unemployment, all debt, meaning government, business, and personal debt. And then productivity. Once again, the consumer buys stuff, so the company has to make stuff, and they pay the employee who turns around and becomes the consumer at the beginning again. So if productivity goes up, we'll get into that. Okay, let's start with consumer spending. Let's assume, because this is the way it's going, that consumer spending is coming down and it's here. We're flat. We've been flat for many years with our productivity. I'm sorry, consumer spending. I don't want to make the association too close, right? The Dow, the Wall Street we've seen, right, it came down and it's been rising and rising and rising since, well, the crash of '08, once they pumped a bunch of money in there, right? They pumped a bunch of QE, a bunch of free money, a bunch of TARP money. Investors are told, hey, you got to send your extra money to Wall Street because it's going up in value, right? Quantitative easing is the cash loans to banks and corporations. Well, the consumer spending came down, and so they started pumping cash into the system, right? Employment, it was down a little, and they've got it up. But it's at all-time highs, and it's been at all-time highs for a long time. So, it's been flat. Consumer spending has been flat, and also productivity. If consumers aren't buying more, they're buying. We got it up to where it is, right? But productivity doesn't need to rise if spending and buying isn't rising. So productivity came down with spending, and it's been flat. So I want to take a look here at this cycle, this economic cycle of consumerism. So the consumer has money, right? And they spend it, and they only buy so much. And the company only needs to make so much, and so they only need to pay so much to employees. And here we are in this loop. So we've got 3 lines going lateral, and we've got 3 lines going up. And what are those lines going up all about? Well, QE, cash loans to banks, it's going up. As a result, well, let's come back down here. We'll come all the way back down to here. Consumer spending drives the economy. We've described that system. So, quantitative easing should fuel activity. That's what we're being told by the banks and the government. This quantitative easing, it's going to drive, right, our economy. We're going to keep our economy going because it's going to drive the economy. So, right, QE should fuel the economy, but quantitative easing, QE, goes to banks and loans to corporations, right? You're not going to hear at my front door anybody banging on it saying, I'm from the bank and I'm here to loan you free money. Money that has no interest, that you can invest however you want, right? And it's going to be fine. So, the quantitative easing is going to banks and loans from corporations. We were told that corporations will get this money and they're going to invest in research and development, infrastructure, corporate infrastructure improvements. They're going to increase productivity lines. They're going to hire more employees. They're going to produce more goods. And this is going to cause the economy to go up. Along right with this blue line of QE, we were supposed to see the orange line of productivity, corporate productivity, go up. But it's not an industrial-based economy. It's a consumer-based economy. Remember, consumer, and the consumer is me and you, the people. The brown line that continues to go flat. So we've got a disconnect. First disconnect. So, but the QE goes to banks and loans to corporations. So, rather than hiring more people to put a lot of money into the economy, to do more research and development, to improve everything that businesses do, it hasn't happened. So where are they spending the QE? Where is that frickin' money going? It's going into the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, this green line. That is why Wall Street is going up. And it's as a result of this belief that the economy, which is consumerism, is actually Wall Street. Well, look at the Dow. It's at all-time highs. That means the economy is smoking. It can't be stopped. I mean, look at that thing. It's just poof up. Right? It's because corporations are taking QE and they're investing it in their own, they're buying back stocks. Why does that make the stock value go up? Well, because they buy back their stock with money they get from you for free through quantitative easing, or money they get through the banks that we pay for through quantitative easing. There's less on the market. That makes a shortage in stock. So the investor class of our country has less to buy, so they compete more for it, driving the price up. It's the one area, the stock market, where actual economics is working properly, right? In other words, there's a shortage of stocks because they're artificially buying the market dry, and it's making the values look like it's going up. Then someone points and goes, oh, look, the stock market's up. The economy must be great. Everything is great. That's what they're telling me and you, as our spending is flat, right? Our spending is flat. Employment, well, employment's at an all-time high, but they're lousy jobs and they're not paying well, which is why consumer spending isn't going up. There's not more money making it to the bottom line, making it back through this cycle of consumer spending, corporate buyback of stocks does not put more money in the employee consumer's hands, because it doesn't increase productivity and it doesn't increase wages, and it's not going anywhere. It's very lateral. It's not accelerating, right? So corporations are buying back their stocks because consumers can't buy more. Well, we're not getting paid more. We can't buy more. And then I've got the all debt line, which is government debt. Well, you're going to put all this QE out there. That's debt. State governments, the same way. Corporations, rather than go into this idea of more production plants, which they don't need, right? Everything they're paying for is with debt while they invest their money to make their stock look better, so that the executives of the companies, if the stock is going up, they get bonuses. So rather than take that QE and put it into the company, which isn't going to produce a whole lot more because consumer spending is flat, they want those big fat salaries and those big fat bonuses we keep hearing about on the news. So they're doing inside their company the things that make them look like heroes. In fact, they're going to close a plant, right, GM, General Motors? They're going to close a plant here. They're going to cut costs there. They're going to lay off people in a lot of cases. Plant closings, layoffs, because it makes the company look more profitable. Their sales aren't going up. Their sales are flat or going down a little. So in order to make the company look profitable, they're unloading assets. They're unloading liabilities to make the bottom line look better, and they get these big fat bonuses as their company borrows money to buy back stocks to drive the Wall Street numbers higher and higher. So consumers can't buy more. Why? Because they're in debt. This red line represents the debt line of the United States government, the debt line of corporations, and the debt line of the people. People are in more debt, not less debt. They don't have extra money to go spend, which would increase productivity, which would be if the Dow was going up because of increased productivity and increased sales. That would make more sense since we have a consumer economy, or we're supposed to. We went from an industrial economy to a consumer economy, and it's looking like we're going to drive the economy now with debt. In other words, they're going to borrow money from the future to make everything look good today while we're not doing much, and that's going to make us look like we're getting ahead. We're driving this economy with debt by pumping money into it. That's not getting us anywhere because consumers are not spending more. As we go through this holiday season, you're going to hear that the weather was bad, that people are spending money in other ways than traditional ways, that the internet is being used. Well, next year, I'm sure we'll hear that people are buying their Christmas presents from black market stolen goods and out the back of Walmart or something. And that's why the numbers don't show. It's asinine. Anyways, so consumers can't buy more. So employment and productivity is stalled. It's not diving. It's not accelerating. It's just kind of stalled. And it is going to start tailing off, right? It's stalled. Because we don't have more money to pump into the consumer economy. We don't have that money to drive it up, right? So if this is a consumer economy, this is the upshot of this. If this is a consumer economy, shouldn't any quantitative easing or cash that's being pumped into this debt economy, wouldn't it make more sense to send that money to people like you and me and others? Because we'll turn around and do what? We'll pay off debt and we'll spend more. Oh, wait a minute, here's a grand fucking idea. Let's spend more in a consumer economy that would do what? We spend more, we get stuff. Okay, the corporations get more retail spending, so they have profits from actual sales. How fucking about that? Right? And so then they go, holy shit, we now, because we're getting more spending, this brown line starts turning up, well, we need to increase productivity. Holy shit, the orange line would go up. Wouldn't that be grand? Well, spending goes up, the orange line goes up, and the purple line, employment, would go up. They'd be like, holy cow, we're selling more, so we need to produce more, so we need to hire more people and put people in better jobs. Well, wait a minute, employment's already low. Let's pay the people we have more, and then we're going to improve our production capacity, our production ability. That money would then be used to improve a company's, what? Infrastructure. Instead of sending all the money to Wall Street by buying back stocks to make them look good and make money, they'd have to make money in corporations the old-fashioned way, by producing things, by making things better, by competing more. So all of these lines could turn up. Instead of the rich getting richer, the debt getting worse, right? And the banks having all this cash out there that you are on the hook to pay for. Instead, this is why we're seeing the 1% get wealthier while the rest of us are stalled. So cash should go to consumers in a consumer economy. Why is our system failing? We're putting all this money in it. That's why you dopey dickheads at the Federal Reserve, the government, the banking system. You guys, it's called Economy 101. Economics 101. Econ 101. How can you expect any of this to get better if the money doesn't go into the economy and it gets pumped over to Wall Street to make it look like it's better? So, right? Cash should go to consumers, not to blow bubbles. And here we are. I got to the bubbles. The stock market, yes, Mr. Trump, President Donald J. Trump, is in a big, fat bubble. When the president took over, the stock market was just below 20,000. The Dow Jones. I'll stick with the Dow. The Dow Jones was just below 20,000. And at that time, he said we were in a big, fat bubble. And we'd better be very careful, right? Because we're in a big, fat bubble. And since the big, fat bubble, we've gone from 20,000 to 28,000. That's roughly a 40% increase in the Dow Jones. That's the blue line. I'm sorry. The green line. 40% increase in 3 years. Average of 13, 12, 14 a year. That's a pretty big increase in stock market value for an economy that's growing at what? They claim it's growing at 3%, 2%, 2.5%. I don't buy any of that. Wages aren't going up that fast. Debt is going up a lot faster. It's a big, fat bubble. The debt is going up. since Obama became president, carrying through Trump with the current policies, we're increasing the debt. We're going in debt another 5 to 10% every year. Now imagine if you had $100,000 in debt and you went up 5% every year. Would you see an end to that? Right, the last 10 years, in fact, 20 years ago, we had less than $1 trillion in debt. Nationally, government debt, federal government. In 20 years, we've gone from 1 trillion to we're nearly $24 trillion in debt. That's stated debt. That's on the books debt, not secret debt, right? Secret debt, on the books debt. I'll take someone who is a gambler, for example, and he's got regular debt. He's got to pay for his house, his car, his food, his family. That's the regular guy, right? Regular girl. She's out there working her butt off. But at night, she's rolling some frickin' dice. Hey, mama needs a new pair of shoes, right? Ow, crapped out. Guess what? You now owe Guido money, and that is off the books debt. You've got a bookie that owns you, and you're paying that back, but you don't put it on the books, right? That'll get your ass in trouble. Throwing them bones, right? Not good. So that's secret debt on top of regular debt. Anyways, we're in a big bubble. We're in a debt bubble. Corporations, right? What are they doing? They're taking out loans. Corporations, these QE are loans. Even though they're not paying interest, they still have to pay the money back. But where's the money going? They're buying back their stock. So they're going in debt. They have corporate debt while they make themselves look rich. So they get all of their big fat paychecks and bonuses while the companies are becoming less and less solvent, broke. Even the banks are going less and less solvent. That's what the repo market is about. There's not enough liquidity, and they're unwilling to loan to each other because they don't trust each other's practices because they know what the fuck they're doing. Themselves and what others are doing. They're playing this game of enriching themselves while the economy goes sideways. But they're claiming everything's great because the economy has a high Dow, S&P, NASDAQ. Yet we know it's a consumer economy. I mean, if there's some way to have a debt economy where you and I benefited, wouldn't that be great if we had that kind of economy where we're all doing great? Well, it doesn't work that way, does it? Debt doesn't create wealth. Productivity creates wealth. Farming, mining, manufacturing, followed by the consumer buying and going through this cycle that actually makes things go up. It's a cycle of up. Not now. So when I say money makes the world go round, this is Economics 101, how it should work and what they're actually doing now. We have big fat bubbles. Real estate bubbles, because this cash loans to banks and corporations, guess what they're doing with their profits? They're buying up real estate. So you and me, how can we afford land and homes when you've got wealth management corporations out there buying everything and driving the prices up? It's artificially blown up with what? QE, loans, and debt. Corporations are not homeowners. Since when do corporations get the American dream? Well, John, there's investors in those corporations, and if the corporation's value goes up, they go up. Oh, so the investor class is the only one that gets to profit by this system. That's right. Not the 1%, but the 15%, because about 15% of Americans are in the investor class. The rest of us are not. We're in the debt class. The system used to be called feudalism, where you rented the property you're on, and the lord, be it a baron, a earl, a duke, the king himself, if you were in his fiefdom, right? Kingdom, right? You were a peasant. You were part of the feudal system where you work enslaved just to subsist. Guess what we've got? We have a neo-feudal system. 25 years ago, I think, was the first time I heard someone say, we're moving into a neo-feudal system. And I was like, no, man, you make more money, you get out of that. The more money you have as an individual, the freer you're going to be, you're going to have more options. It's less feudal. Nope, it's becoming more feudal. As we become peasants to corporations, oh yeah, as well as the state. It used to be church and state. People owed fealty, behavior, obedience to the state, the king, and the church, which grabbed you by the neck and said, you want to burn in hell? And if you don't, you got to give us your money and behave. All right, and the king said, we'll send you to hell by killing you if you don't behave. So people had to behave, right? Well, the church has been replaced by our new religion called consumerism, which is a blending of the church and state concept again, right? If you want to continue to live, you have to buy. You have to obey. But you're not going to get ahead, not in the system we have, because everything we do is flat or down. So, anyways, this is why shit is going to hit the fan and why you need to be prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Because believe it or not, you are not a feudal serf or peasant or slave. You're a free human being. You need to do what you can to get prepared for the hard times that are coming. Because this bubble, the one President Donald J. Trump talked about, that got blown and got blown a lot bigger, guess what? It's going to get worse and then it's going to pop. All bubbles pop. Because this isn't a golden bubble. It's not a magical bubble. It's a debt bubble. Once again, all of these great numbers and figures are debt bubbles. I'm going to do a video on the Exodus, if you will. That's right. We're going to talk Exodus and, yeah, kind of biblical in a way, is it not? Except the people exodusing are not slaves trying to get away from the masters. It's going to be quite a bit different. Until then, though, right? Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. And thank you again for letting me do this, talk about this kind of stuff, because this is leading to everything else. Money makes the world go round, right? Rules, behavior, everything. Everything makes the world go round, and when it stops going round, it goes boom. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. I'll talk to you soon.